Yo, what is going on, everybody? It is me. It has been a while since we talked meta. New box just came out in Dueling, so let's talk about what's been meta impactful. In this video, I'm going to talk about the recent $100 battle phase that we had, what I think the meta slash tier list kind of looks like, as well as the new box 1 week later. What cards were good, what cards were bad, what archetypes were good, what archetypes had a meta impact, etc., etc., etc. If you like this type of content, like, comment, subscribe down at the bottom. Join the Discord because we're having daily tournaments. They have returned for both Duel Links and Master Duel. So make sure you are a part of the Discord to take advantage of that. So Future Circuit has come out, and I want to bring your attention over. Let's just start over at the battle phase 4-4-1. A total of 145 players ended up playing with, I think, 180 some signed up. With 145 actually ending up playing on game day. You can see Mech Knights, the overwhelming number of entries, which is a super interesting kind of thing that we can talk about as we get into the top cut here. Salomon Great, still lots of great representation for them. And a bunch of new decks as well, especially Goki. Goki seems to be the kind of grand winner of the box because if we go into the top 32, you can see Goki is the second highest deck on here, with Mech Knights taking first and Salomon Great taking third in representation. Still overall very balanced meta, in my opinion. It really does feel like a meta where any deck can win and no deck is kind of like the lone tier 1, which is kind of what we've been feeling with the game for an extremely long time. So I am very, very excited to see that the meta is still kind of being healthy, even though we had one of the largest box releases kind of in Duel Links history. So let's talk about the decks. Mech Knight, starting off with Mech Knight. Mech Knight is extraordinarily strong. Surprise Present in itself kind of shuts down decks when you least expect it. Funny enough, though, all of the Mech Knights, all 8 Mech Knights lost by top 8. One guy with Mech Knights made top 8. So even though they had an okay conversion going from enter to top 32, listen, the most popular deck is always going to have really bad conversion, right? The perceived best deck, and that happens to be Mech Knight right now. While Goki's, on the other hand, actually had a mirror in the grand finals, which is super hype. Goki's being able to abuse the new box as much as they have has been really, really cool to see. Mech Knights, they are definitely a tier 1 deck, right? And kind of what's keeping them from being the sole tier 1 is how easy they are to stop, right? MSTs, dark holes, they're not immune to these strategies. They don't have protection from that kind of stuff. And the once you take care of the secrets and stuff like that, they only have one of those in their deck. So once that's gone, there's not too much to the deck that does anything too crazy, outside of trying to stall you with their Link monster, moving zones and stuff, which really isn't going to help them win the duel. So no one really cares that that's happening, right? Still a really strong deck, especially with Surprise Present, being able to set up your columns consistently. And even if you are fine with columns, being able to kind of snowball with Blue Sky is extremely powerful, and easily a tier 1 deck currently in the metagame. Glad to see that it's still doing very well. I think the deck is absolutely killing it right now. Next up on the list, Goki. Goki has gotten so many buffs from the recent box. Dark Hole is amazing on them. The new Goki monster is okay. The new boss monster is okay. The winner actually did not use the Goki boss monster, while his opponent did. So it seems to be a little bit more on the optional side. They definitely don't need it. Unexpected die, or expendable die, rather, not unexpected die, is another major card that they saw. It's basically a better ballista squad for Gokis, and also helps that Gokis get an additional search when you tribute the monster. And then, of course, the Nightmare package has been absolutely outstanding for them, making it so they don't have to necessarily play as much back row removal, and they can play more generic traps while still having that back row removal available thanks to the Nightmare package available for them. So they have been killing it, and I am really, really happy to see the deck kind of float back up. And quite honestly, it is hard to argue that Goki is not a tier 1 deck. I can see an argument for tier 2. There's not enough data, blah, blah, blah. But from all of the tournaments we've seen, Goki has had good representation, and then having a mirror in the grand finals of the biggest tournament of the month, it's really hard to argue that they are not currently a tier 1 deck, and I personally believe that they should sit in that tier 1 position. Good job, Goki's. Glad to see them. Salamangreats, they are still here. Salamangreat is still fine. It's absolutely an A-OK deck. My personal pick for a tier 2 deck right now, I think this deck is doing very well because of the new staples that released, Dark Hole, stuff like that. And really, the only thing that kind of keeps it down is the limit list, right? Having so many cards limited means that they can't abuse as many cards of the staples that are out right now, right? The Crackdown, the Compulse, etc., etc. They're forced to use, Salamangreat Circle and stuff like that to keep themselves consistent. But the deck is still extremely powerful. It is still really, really good, and it's still making it really, really high in tournament settings. There's not much else to say about Salamangreat. It's the same exact deck in Girsu control. Now you've got more extra deck monsters. The thing with this deck is the more the generic extra deck support we get, the better off this deck is going to become. So it's not going to go anywhere anytime soon unless they nerf it even further. So my pick for the tier 2 that we currently have in the game. Next up, we have DDD, and I truly do believe that DDD is currently part of the metagame at a tier 3 capacity. DDD, if the deck high rolls, we saw on stream during the tournament someone quad pendulum summon into a GN Stranger, pulls 2 Book of Moons, and is able to make a Sky Prison at the same time. I don't care what deck you are, right? In the current meta, you're probably going to lose against that. That is a lot of advantage all on turn 1. That is just, you have to get super lucky to get into, but it's just a reality that DDD lives, right? They are just a super sacky deck that just comes down to, did you draw well, right? Is that enough to keep it meta? Absolutely, because quite a few of them have been able to get to top 8, just not enough to really win tournaments. That's kind of really the only thing, right? Because, listen, a deck that's inconsistent can only win so much. But even if it gets super lucky, it's strong, if not stronger, than the original DDD. The only thing that the skill really gave to them back then was the consistency boost. Obviously, losing all their limits is huge, but the deck doesn't even need limits to win, if we're being honest. So there you go. Good job, DDD. Favorite duel has stuck around, but I don't think it's meta relevant. The deck is just kind of more, it's a stall deck with back row and heroes. Because it's a slow deck, it's always going to see representation in top cuts. I don't necessarily think that means it's meta. It's a good deck, though, definitely in the rogue category. Same with Burning Abyss. Burning Abyss is just too slow with all the limits it's received. It's kind of sad. I talk about this on stream all the time. I actually liked Burning Abyss when they didn't have any limits because it felt like they were not stalling. They were a control deck that just wanted to move the game forward as much as they can every single turn. But nowadays, whenever I watch Burning Abyss, it really does feel like they're just stalling and they're not really doing much with the game. So sad to see the state they're in. Hopefully they can get some unlimits, because I do think that we are now in a metagame where that has been the strongest that we've ever had. So I don't see any reason for this deck to remain as limited as it is. There you go. Trickstars. There's a lot of hype in the community for Trickstars, and they did not do that well in this tournament. Both players topped with an X2 record, which is a tiebreaker record, and both failed to proceed off from top 32. So they got up there kind of with luck, and they didn't perform very well once they got into the top cut. I will keep my eye on it in the coming weeks to see if my opinion changes or if they do any better. But yeah, as of right now, unfortunately, I don't think they are part of the metagame, nor do I think they're a rogue level deck. But there is one that I'm keeping my eye on. We should start a new category. Like kind of like how DLM has high potential. Well, we'll have a new one. We'll have a new category. Rai keeps an eye on the deck and gives you his final opinion the following week. How about that? There you go. Code Talkers, wow, they fell off. As far as decks falling off, there's only one other deck that I feel fell off harder than Code Talkers, and that's Infernoid, and we'll talk about them later. But yeah, Code Talker, you would think, with the Ibly Pass, they'd be really strong, but everyone's countering Ibly pretty easily. And to be honest, other decks are abusing Ibly more than Code Talkers are. They just don't really seem to have what it takes, not even to like a rogue level, if I'm being honest. But I have seen them clutch out some crazy wins. I just don't think that the Ibly lock ended up being better for other archetypes and not necessarily themselves. Next up, D Hero. I don't know how this guy topped. He's the GOAT. Galaxy Eyes. Galaxy Eyes is amazing in our main phase tournaments where we have the best of one single elimination because if it just comes out and sacks you, it just comes out and sacks you. It is what it is. But in a best of three environment, of course, Galaxy Eyes can't stand up to the other powerhouses, but it is a good rogue strategy, especially in those best of one scenarios. One Cosmo did end up topping, but he also failed to get past top 32, and I'll talk a little bit more about Cosmo later. And then, of course, Rose Dragon has kind of hovered in that rogue category ever since its nerfs, and Salmon Great nerfs as well. So there you go. Infernoid. What the hell happened to Infernoid? Well, the new staples in the box just was not good for them, especially Dark Hole. They don't really have a good answer to Dark Hole. A lot of people were saying, oh, well, what about, there was the Exile card, Fiendish Exile or whatever it was called. And that card only affects Fiends, but Dark Hole is a main deckable answer to Infernoids and other decks at the same time, so you don't have to sacrifice your deck's consistency or draw a useless card or even side deck the card, because usually this card will end up being in your main deck anyway, and there's just been too many of these to kind of handle. On top of that, with the rise of Goki, and specifically the new Goki Ace monster, this one card can essentially just stop the Infernoid strategy from even becoming a thing, and that led to Infernoids kind of losing throughout the week, and only 2 even entering in the tournament. So we'll have to see if Gokis end up doing anything, or I'm sorry, not Gokis, if Infernoid end up doing anything, but as it stands right now, it does look like they're just done. There's nothing that they're going to be contributing further to the meta. They'll go back to being a rogue deck. Kind of sucks to see because they were a cheap deck, but it is what it is, Sometimes staples come out and make you completely irrelevant. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Let's talk about the new box very quickly. New box decks, Cosmo and Magical Muskets. Both are terrible. I can't even lie to you guys. In the competitive seed, both decks are pretty god-awful. Cosmo, even like on ranked ladder, is not really that good, if I'm being honest. The deck is just too inconsistent, I feel. And it feels too high-rolly to get a sack. If you want to high-roll, just play DDD, because then at least even if you're not high-rolling, you're setting up a decent board to survive in. I don't see the hype behind Cosmo. I don't think there's anything to it. They're going to need heavy future support in order to be any good. Magical Musket is a super interesting one, because while it's no good for competitive play, especially with Mech Knights being able to just surprise present under your Mech monster or your Magical Musketeer monster without having the ability to even counter that, pretty much shuts you down. So unless Mech Knights suddenly disappear from the meta, this deck has no chance. And then on top of that, they're missing really good support. They died a Book of Moon, etc., etc., etc. Hey, it is what it is. You know what I mean? So I think this deck, the only benefit of it is it's extremely cheap. If you do one full run through of this box, you will have everything that you need to play this free to play, no problem. And it is a balanced deck, so you don't have to play like crazy amounts of monsters or anything to make this deck work. So it's a nice King of Games deck, ladder deck. That you will get as you get the other cards, but that's about it as far as competitive viability goes. Unfortunately, Magic Musket also did not make it, but it is extremely fun to play, so keep that in mind. Let's talk about the important things, the staples. Firewall Dragon has had no impact, but I can see it having good future impact for sure. Good generic monster. Link 4 that has an amazing effect if the correct deck is used on it. We'll see if anything happens with it. The Unicorn, or the Nightmare Engine, the Unicorn and the Nightmare Phoenix, has been absolutely substantial. It is helping control back row like crazy. It is helping, remove floatable monsters like crazy. It has been very, very, very impactful. Probably the most impactful out of the box. Having the unicorn send a card back into the deck is really strong, but probably more is the Nightmare Phoenix because it's so low cost. 2 monsters, boom, a back row is gone, and sometimes you may force up to 2 back row for your opponent from your Nightmare Phoenix before you even play any back row removal, especially when one of the best decks in the game is, reliant on their back row. These cards are just amazing for that. So really, really happy to see those cards. The Whale, dude, the Whale, let's go, has seen a little bit of competitiveness. If I had to pick a generic rank 4, I'd probably pick this over Firewall Dragon, if I'm being honest. It's our version of Access Code Talker. I think that's what I've heard it referred to. And that's yeah, it is what it is. It's got a really interesting effect where if it's destroyed, you can summon a link 3 or lower, and then if a link 3 or lower is destroyed, you can pop a card in the field, which is super, super cool if you aren't able to OTK your opponent. But overall, slight impact, nothing too crazy on the metagame right now. Droll and Lock Bird. We saw one guy get Droll and Lock Bird on stream. I really think Droll and Lock Bird has a lot of future potential, just like DD Crow did when it first came out. But as of right now, there's nothing that makes me want to play Droll and Lock Bird that I can't counter with, MSTs or something else like that. Good future potential, but nothing meta warping right now. We'll keep an eye on it for sure, though. Bottomless Trap Hole came out in this pack because Salamangreat is being played less and less and less compared to where it was before. Bottomless has gotten significantly better. It's actually a really good meta staple right now if you don't have Compulse and the Crackdowns, which are the 2 best, of course, in this game. Trick Stars, we talked a little bit about Trick Stars. I think they are decent enough for rogue level. We'll keep our eyes on it if it goes any further than that. Goki Master Ogre has been absolutely amazing. It lets Goki set up a turn 1 negate, which is an FTK against certain decks, but it's not necessarily required, as we saw the winner of Battle Phase not even have it in his deck. Ibli is on everyone's mind right now. Everyone's like, this needs to be nerfed, this needs to be nerfed. And no one's really gotten shut down or locked by this yet. We'll have to see in the future if she, becomes a problem. I could see a future where decks that cannot link summon at all because of an anime skill or something, maybe she'll become a problem. But as of right now, none of those decks are relevant anyway. So she hasn't really done too much, but I could see a future where she starts doing a whole lot. Dark Hole has been amazing. Dark Hole is really good because it lets you pop your own cards and activate your own effects, as well as wiping your opponent's cards is really, really strong, especially if they overcommit to a board and they aren't able to OTK you. This card has had a lot of influence in the games. And then Expendable Die has been really, really strong for Gokis, especially. Pretty much between this and Dark Hole, this is what kind of put Goki on the tier list, I feel. Expendable Die, getting those free pops, that Ballista Squad, and that Search on top of that has been very fire for them. So there you go, boys. Review of the box. Just run through it once and you are good to go. You don't have to run through it multiple times, in my opinion, unless you really want like 3 Dark Holes for whatever reason. I think 2 is totally fine. This box was definitely a good 10 out of 10. Everyone should go through it. I loved it. Tell me what you guys think about the tier list, about the meta, about the box. Share your opinions with me, and hopefully I can get back to doing these weekly. Take it easy, boys. Till the next one.